Welcome back everyone to the ultimate guide to Blender 3D rigging and animation, and this is where we left it off. Now before we start off, I know that some of you might want to start on this part of the course from the get-go. Although I recommend you to familiarize with other stages first to get a better hang in animation, I'll make sure to walk you through this with a nice pace and all the information needed to understand more technical aspects of these lessons. So this is going to be broken down basically into, first of all, rigging our little woman here. And then what we're going to do is we're actually going to do a walk cycle. So let's get started. The first thing you can see is that this woman is absolutely huge in comparison to our little guy over here. So we should actually make her much, much smaller. So what I'm going to do is just press S, make her smaller. I'm going to try and get her to be the right size. Now, if you're creating something like a stylized character, you might be able to get away with something this size. Something like World of Warcraft, for instance, the characters are like 7 or 8 feet tall in reality. So you just have to take into account, though, if you're taking this through to, a games engine or something like that, they're going to move at a much, much faster pace, really. Plus, if they are like much, much larger, then the movements need to be a lot more slower and a lot more deliberate. If you think of any movies you've seen when, you're looking at giant things walking around, it's very slow, it's very deliberate, but they do walk a lot faster in comparison to an average size human. So all these things need to take into account. So what I would recommend is, first of all, work out how tall your character is going to be actually based on your scene or based on the games engine you're taking it into. Is it going to be a giant? Is everything in the actual games engine that you actually create in the game for going to be much larger than in real life? This all needs to be taken into account. Plus, not that, as I said before, if you take this in and it's not actually the proper size, then what will happen is it will cause problems a lot further down the line. Some people might have to rescale your human or your humanoid that you're taking in there, or your dog or whatever. You'll have to be rescaled up, and that will cause problems with the animation, problems with the games engine or something like that. So always better, first of all, to get the scale correct. So the first thing I'm going to do is, now I've got it here, I'm just going to make it a little bit smaller, like so, and you can see it's around about the right size now. This OBJ human here is 1.8 meters tall, which is around the average height for a human. So this lady robot on the left hand side being a little bit taller won't actually make any difference, really. All right, so once we've done that, I'm actually going to put her in the center then, like so. Then I'm going to actually delete my human now. In fact, I won't delete him, I'll just hide him out the way. I don't need him anymore. And then I'm just going to hide out this and this, and then I'm going to grab her. And what I'm going to do, just to make this a little bit easier, I've called this robot Andrew. It was going to be a male robot from the film. I forgot what the film's called now, but it was about a robot. But anyway, let's just call her Andrew. So let's put it over down at the bottom. So I'm just going to drag her all the way down to the bottom. I think she's gone into my actual camera, so I'm going to take her out of there and put her down at the bottom if I can. There we go. All right, so now she's out of there, which means then I can control turning her on and off if I need to see bones or anything like that. The first thing then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my cursor to the center, so Shift S, cursor to world origin, and then I'm going to press on my robot, Shift S, selection to cursor, keep offset, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just now going to pull her up. This is going to make it easy because when creating bones and things like that, we want to be able to mirror it from, from one side to the other. That then makes it much easier to actually work with rather than creating every single bone ourselves. All right, so the first thing then we're going to do is we're going to put in our first bone. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to press Shift S now, and we're going to have Shift S, cursor to selected, which has put my cursor right where our orientation is. Now I recommend when you're starting to put the bones in, always start down here, just where the hips are, as you can see, because then that's a great start for going upwards, and then you can work off that coming down to the legs. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to press Shift A, and we're going to bring in a armature, and I'm actually going to make it smaller first of all, bring it in like so, and I'm also going to turn on names, and I'm also going to put it in front on this one, just so we can actually get an idea of where the actual bones are. Now the other thing you can see, it's slightly above where the hips are. I want it realistically to be around this hip joint, which is going to be where this blue line is. So I'm just going to pull it down just a tad like so. All right, so the other thing is you might actually want to change your bones to be B bones or something like that. It might actually make it a little bit easier to work with. I'm going to make it a tiny bit smaller like so. Okay. Now, before we carry on, let's come over and rename it. So we'll call it a robot rig or something like that. And then that makes sure then, as we spoke about, if it's being sent through to Unreal Engine or something like that, then it's not going to cause issues, because if we don't rename the armature, sometimes it causes issues. The other thing I should point out here is we're only going to do the main rig. The hands and things like that we're not actually going to do. We're not going to create a very complex rig here. This is all about giving you the basics to actually create your own rigs. The hands pretty much are going to be using the same techniques as what you're going to learn throughout, you know, rigging this actual character. So just bear that in mind. Now, for me, I do actually always like working on octahedral bones. And the reason is because I like seeing where this bone gets thinner at the top. It gives me a good visual, for instance, of which way this bone's actually pointing. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab the top of this bone. I'm going to pull it down to the actual bottom of here. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to lift it up like so, something like this. I'm also obviously keeping in mind, I really don't want to twist my bones or anything. I want to keep it as straight as possible. And that is why I'm working on number 1 on the number pad, which is the front view. The next thing you want to do before moving forward is if you press 3 on the number pad, you can come to the side. And what you want to do is really, you want to line this kind of up. So you want to line it up just a little bit back, just so it's kind of going up this way. We don't want too much bend in it. So we don't want to have it like coming down or anything like that. We want it to be relatively straight. And the main reason for that is, 1, it's easier to animate, and 2, it's easier then for Blender, when we come to automatic weighting, to actually weight it onto this actual mesh. So the next one I'm going to do is, if I come around to this side, press 1 again, I'm going to come down to the bottom now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to extrude out another bone. And this bone is going to be sort of like the main controller of the whole rig. So you will see sometimes you have ragdolls, for instance, when you're moving them around and all the actual robots moving with it. That is what this bone is going to be. It's basically it's like the root bone, but not quite the root bone. The root bone really should be down the bottom, but we'll discuss that as we go a little bit more into it. So if I now press E for extrude, I'm going to pull it up. So I'm going to press the Z to actually tie it to that actual axis, and I'm going to put it just there like so. So just below it like so. Now that you've still got this bone, the best thing you can do now is bring in another bone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually pull it up just so it's where the actual belly button is, so around here. And then I'm going to extrude it up, so E, Z again, and this time I'm going to pull it up to round about the chest area. And then finally I'm going to pull the next one up just below the neck here, so basically tying into where the actual shoulders will come. This is basically the same rig you'll be doing no matter what kind of humanoid you're going to be animating. If you keep these points in mind, then you should be absolutely fine. So again, if I press now E and Z and pull it up just to where the shoulders are coming around here, we might move these down as we work on or something like that, but that looks fine for now. So now let's extrude it up for the neck. So if I press 3, go to the side view, you can see I'm a little bit out of the month. I'm going to fix all these in a minute. So I'm going to press E and Z. I'm going to pull it up to where, just below where the head is, and then E and Z and pull it up all the way. So this now is the actual head bone. Now I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this one first, and I'm going to start pulling these back like so. And you can see it's a nice smooth arc here, and it's actually following the actual contours of this actual robot. So you can see now when we straighten that up, it's nice and smooth. It's not actually jagged, and that is exactly what we want. Now, honestly, I recommend you really take your time when you're actually doing this, because if not, and you just try and rush it or something, you're going to make mistakes and it's not going to be in the right place, which is going to cause you a lot of problems further down the line. So this part of actually creating our rig is the most important part, because that is where everything kind of feeds off. So now let's think about our actual shoulder bone. So what I'm going to do is, in front view, I'm going to press shift and right click, and I want it to be round about here, because this is going to be the shoulder bone. So I want it basically coming from here up to here. So if I shift right click here, and then what I should do is press shift A, bring in a new bone. I'm going to grab the top of this bone. So grab the top, and then what I'm going to do is move it round to my actual shoulder, something like there. I'm probably going to pull it back a little bit as well. And now I'm going to check on 3, so side view, whereabouts this is in real time. I'm going to actually move it back a little bit like so, and then move this point back like so. And now you can see that's fitting really, really nicely in there. And now what you want to do is you want to actually extrude this out. So we're trying to extrude this out all the way down to the elbow. Now, the thing is, a lot of times you will actually have a character that comes in a T-pose. I'll put down the bottom right-hand side here what a T-pose is. But honestly, when we're actually creating characters, if you're a beginner, it's quite hard to actually create that T-pose. So if you're probably more than likely going to get a character that comes in like this. So as long as it's got its arms out and not actually stuck at the side or anything, or right above its head, or any, kind of weird pose or anything, or this arm's different from the other side, you should be okay as a beginner actually putting a rig on this. You can basically rig anything, but you need a lot more experience if you're rigging something along those lines. So now let's press 1 again, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to press E, and I'm going to drag this out. Now you can see it's actually twisting at the moment, so what I tend to do is I'm going to lock it first of all to the actual X-axis, so bring it to here, and then I will pull it down like so. This means that we've got no roll on the actual bone, because if you have that, it's going to cause you problems in the long run. Now let's go to 3 again, just make sure that this is where I actually want it to be. So you can see the elbow is coming round about here. Let's press 1 again. And I think let's go behind as well. So Control 1, that then is fitting the elbow perfectly, as you can see. So if we take a look round now, we're actually down to the elbow. We've got actually all the chest, the stomach, the head, everything else done. And we're only going to rig one side of it, as I said, and then we're going to mirror it over the other side. I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. And then a bit later on, we're going to put in IKs, and we're also going to put in poles as well, which means that the elbows and the knees and things like that follow a certain direction, because you don't want your bones actually spinning, in a weird way or anything like that. But that's for a little bit later on. All right, everyone. So I hope you enjoyed that. I'm actually going to save this out like so, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.